In every universe, light and darkness dance as reflections of the same truth. Zamasu believed mortals were flawed because they bore chaos within them. But what if, for the first time, the reflection looked back and understood? Somewhere beyond the threads of time, within the shattered glass of destiny, a single thought rippled through the void. What if destruction was never purity, but pain misread as purpose? And in that thought, Goku Black changed. The rose-colored aura still shimmered around him, divine and violent, but its song was different now. Not of domination, but of remorse. The gods watched in silence as one of their own creations, a fallen Kai, cloaked in a mortal's form, began to awaken to a truth even they feared, that the greatest power in existence was compassion sharpened into will. Before we step into this alternate destiny, where hate questions itself and divinity kneels before humanity, remember to join the journey, so our timelines may never fade into silence. The sky was bruised purple, a color born from fire and divine fury. Smoke curled upward from the remnants of a city once called West Capital, where the wind carried the scent of ash and the silence of the dead. Among the ruins stood a figure draped in black and crimson, his aura flickering like a dying sun. Goku Black had won. Humanity had fallen. The divine justice he had preached was now carved into the bones of the earth itself. And yet, he felt no peace. His scythe of energy hummed faintly in the dim air, its blade dissolving into particles of rose-colored light. He lowered it slowly, watching as the final resistant soldiers vanished into dust. The echo of battle faded, replaced by something far more unsettling. A cry. Small, fragile, human. He turned.
Love, the one emotion Zamasu had cast away as weakness. Goku Black's eyes narrowed. He raised his hand, summoning a sphere of ki, pure, pink, divine. He should have erased her. Erasure was order. Yet his hand trembled just slightly. For a moment, the divine ki faltered, its radiance softening into a golden warmth. He didn't recognize it, and that frightened him more than any mortal weapon ever had. "What is this hesitation?" he whispered to himself. His voice was calm yet hollow, as though the question were being asked by someone else, someone buried deep within him. He crushed the energy sphere with a snap of his fingers. The light vanished. The child kept crying, unaware that the universe itself had just paused to witness mercy. Goku Black turned away. The wind carried whispers of his own thoughts, the remnants of Son Goku's soul echoing faintly within the stolen body. Memories flickered before him like ghosts, the laughter of a son, the voice of Chi-Chi calling from afar, the feeling of battle, not for destruction, but for challenge. He pressed his hand against his chest. The heartbeat there wasn't divine. It was human, steady, raw, painfully alive. "Blasphemy!" he muttered, but the word lacked conviction. A thunderous crack rolled across the horizon as a rift opened in the sky, Trunks' time machine streaking across dimensions. The sight of it once filled him with righteous anger, the certainty of crushing another symbol of mortal defiance. But now, as the golden trail burned through the clouds, he felt curiosity. A question bloomed within him, unbidden. What drives him to return again and again to fight a god he cannot defeat? The question hung in his mind like a weight. Trunks landed in the distance, his blue aura sparking as he stepped forward, sword gleaming. "Black!" he shouted, fury trembling in his voice. "I won't stop until I erase you!" The words should have ignited Goku Black's wrath. Instead, they brought a strange calm. "Erase me?" he said softly, tilting his head. "You cannot erase what even I no longer understand." Trunks frowned, his ki flaring brighter. "Stop playing games!" He charged, and the ground shattered beneath him. Their clash split the ruins apart. Divine rose against mortal blue. But this time, the god's blows felt slower, less certain. His attacks had rhythm but no heart. Trunks parried one strike, then another, until their blades locked. And in that blinding instant, Trunks saw something unfamiliar in Black's eyes. Not hatred, not pride, pain.
"You!" Trunks whispered, breathless. "What are you?" Goku Black didn't answer. A fissure of energy ran down his arm, and the clash threw them both backward. When the dust cleared, Black stood alone, his aura flickering erratically, pink bleeding into white, white into silence. He gazed at his hand, trembling slightly, as though the body itself rejected him. "Zamasu," he murmured, voice distant, as though speaking to a ghost. Was it ever justice, or simply vengeance in disguise? The question echoed across the wasteland, unanswered. Above him, the rift in the sky began to close, its edges burning like paper. He looked up, at the light he once claimed to control, and for the first time, he wondered if gods could feel shame. A single petal of his rose aura drifted away, dissolving into gold. The universe trembled, not from destruction, but from doubt. Night arrived without stars, as if the heavens were ashamed to look upon what had been done in their name. The city's bones smoldered. Somewhere in the dark, the child's sobs faded into sleep, the little body curled against a mother who could no longer answer. Goku Black stood with his back to them, hands clasped behind him, like a penitent before a silent altar. The rose light around him breathed faintly, a candle in wind. Within, a voice paced. It was smooth, precise, the rhetoric of a god who had studied mortals like insects under glass. "Justice is a sharpness, not a cradle. Do not mistake softness for wisdom." The voice belonged to Zamasu, architect of this erasure, teacher and echo. It had always soothed him. Tonight, it grated like steel pulled across bone. He lifted his gaze toward the black horizon. Ki's signatures trembled on the edge of perception. Survivors, hiding, sparking like coals under ash. Before, he would have hunted them. Now, he only listened, mapping the pattern of fear and stubborn breath. It formed a constellation. It looked strangely beautiful. Footsteps rattled broken stone. Mai emerged from a collapsed alley with 2 soldiers at her back. Her pistol tracked the god with the steadiness of a final vow. "Don't move," she said, voice taut. The 2 soldiers took positions, blades raised, eyes wide but unbroken. Goku Black did not turn. "You are alive. I thought you would be." Mai's jaw tightened. "You missed." Her gaze flicked to the shelter. "If you touch that child." He raised a hand, palm open, as though surrendering to moonlight that wasn't there. "I won't."
The soldiers glanced at one another. The idea of mercy, spoken by the demon that destroyed their world, rang false enough to be dangerous. Mai did not blink. "Trunks is coming," she said. "You won't get another chance." "Trunks is already here," Black answered, remembering the clash, the look in the boy's eyes, the pain mirrored in his own. "And yet I am still asking questions." "Gods don't ask," she said. "Then perhaps I am becoming something else." A gust lifted ash in spirals, and the ruined street filled with a soft rushing, like waves folding over the shore of a dream. He felt the child's fragile breath behind him. He felt Mai's focus, steady as a blade held to one's own throat. He felt Zamasu in his blood, coiling, preparing an objection cloaked as doctrine. Mercy is illusion. Mortals exploit it to multiply their sin. Finish your work. He turned enough to meet my stare. His eyes, once pits of gleaming certainty, seemed deeper, the color of a storm that does not know if there will break rain or lightning. "You think I cannot change," he said. "You think a god is a script written in stone." Mai's finger tightened on the trigger. "I think I've watched you turn cities into funerals. If change is real, it starts small. Put your aura away." He did. The rose vanished, leaving only the outline of a man who looked like a hero and carried the stillness of a tomb. It was disorienting, even to him. The body eased, the tension of divine ki uncoiling like a bowstring released. In the quiet, he noticed a pain beneath the sternum he had never named. He pressed his hand there and felt a singular, impudent throb. A heartbeat, mortal, persistent. "Why are you here?" Mai asked. "To see if a question can unmake a fate," he said. A flare split the night. Trunks, blue aura ragged from the last exchange, skidding across rubble to reach Mai's side. His chest heaved. His sword's edge glittered, nicked and stubborn. He stepped forward, interposing his body between Black and the shelter. "You won't touch them," he said, voice hoarse. "Not while I'm breathing." Goku Black looked at the three of them, rebel, warrior, child, and felt it ache like gravity. "I have touched too much," he answered.
Trunks lunged. Black moved to meet him, not with the predatory rhythm of before, but as if returning a memory to its shelf. Their blades met and slid. Trunks' eyes flashed with grief. "Say her name," he snarled, thinking of a mother lost, a world starved of dawn. Goku Black exhaled. "If I say every name, there will be no end." He deflected, stepped back, and pulled the strike rather than punish it. The decision ran through his nerves like a tremor. Restraint, the art he had misnamed cowardice, required a different strength, a different balance. He felt clumsy, like a god learning to walk. Trunks realized it in the next exchange. "You're holding back," he said, breath fogging in the cold. He hated what that recognition did to his hope. "I am listening." To what? To the sound of something I killed trying to breathe again. Mai's eyes flicked between them, calculating, unwilling to lower the gun. The soldiers shifted, confused by a battle that did not end, by a monster who parried instead of devouring. The child coughed in the shelter, a small, ordinary sound that cut deeper than any scream. The voice in his blood sharpened. "Enough! Mercy is betrayal. You know the plan. Eradicate. Purify." Black's vision wavered. For a heartbeat, the world split. One path, a thin, bright line of annihilation, the other a road unpaved, crooked with pain. He thought of the first time he'd worn this face, the awe, the rush of perfect power. How easy it had been to believe that being right and being strong were the same thing. He lowered his guard. Trunks hesitated, sword raised, torn between training and uncertainty. "What game is this?" he asked, voice ragged. "What are you trying to make me believe?" "That choice exists, even for me." The ground trembled, not from any of them, from the sky. A pressure gathered like an unseen hand pressing the earth towards silence. Trunks and Mai felt it too. Their eyes snapped upward. The clouds bunched into a wound, and a column of emerald light fell through the dark like a verdict. A figure stepped out of that light, robed in divinity and hatred so refined it looked like serenity. His eyes gleamed the color of an unblinking judgment. Future Zamasu, immortal, untouchable, the partner and prophet of the plan, descended with a smile that had never once doubted itself. "Brother," he said, voice ringing over the ruins like a temple bell that refused to crack. What error of path has brought you to kneel before insects? The air went thin. Black felt the old allegiance rise like a tide. He felt the new, fragile current push against it, small and stubborn as a weed in stone. Trunks drew breath to shout a warning, but Zamasu was already there, palm raised, energy humming with the cold of law. "Mortals," said Zamasu, flicking his fingers as if to dismiss a line of dust motes. "Kneel, and your end will be without pain." His gaze slid to Black. "As for you, we will correct this deviation." The child coughed again. Black stepped, not toward Zamasu, toward the shelter. Zamasu's smile faltered, the first crack in unbroken porcelain. "Do not move, apprentice." Black did not stop. He knelt, placing his hand over the shattered entryway and released a thin film of ki, not the rose that cut, but a soft warmth that held edges in place and held stone in place. Inside, the child's breathing steady, shielded from chill. Behind him, heat gathered at Zamasu's palm, holy and pitiless. Trunks saw the angle, the inevitable arc of destruction, and moved on instinct, sword up, body already too slow. Mai fired, bullets streaking like sparks toward a storm. Goku Black turned, the movement small, the decision absolute. He raised his hand toward Zamasu, not in attack, but in refusal. The night split open with divine light. Smoke curled between them. "Have you fallen so low," Zamasu said, his voice filled with disgust, "that you shield mortals from divine correction?" Black lowered his hand. "I shielded breath, nothing more." His tone was quiet, but in the stillness of the world, it sounded like thunder from a distant realm. Zamasu's lips tightened. "You speak like them now, clinging to imperfection as though it grants meaning. Do you forget who you are?" "I forget nothing," Black replied, his eyes glinting beneath the fractured moonlight. "But perhaps that is the problem. I remember too much." The words seemed to strike Zamasu harder than any blow. "You dare?" "I remember the taste of fear before battle, the warmth of sunlight after victory, the laughter of a child, the pride of a father, the tears of failure. I remember Goku's heart." Zamasu's aura flared violently, rippling through the air like a storm of emerald fire. "You blaspheme even now. You polluted yourself with the echo of a mortal soul." Black's expression didn't change. Perhaps it was I who was the echo all along. The immortal's fury broke loose. He dashed forward, divine speed bending space around him, his hand cutting through the air like judgment incarnate. The blow should have pierced Black's chest, but it didn't, because Black caught it. Their hands locked. Two gods, reflections of the same origin, now opposing currents of destiny. The ground beneath them cracked, light pouring through fissures like molten truth. For the first time since his creation, Zamasu's strike was stopped by something stronger than dogma. Black met his eyes. "We were meant to guide, not rule." "We were meant to purify," Zamasu roared, energy spiraling outward. "The mortals mock the order of creation. They soiled the divine tapestry with their sin. You would let them live to do it again?" "They sin because they try, because they learn, because they fail, and yet still rise." He pushed Zamasu back, his aura flickering between rose and white, caught between divinity and humanity. "Tell me, old friend, what did we ever rise for?"
Zamasu's silence was answer enough. Trunks and Mai watched from behind the rubble, the godlike clash illuminating their faces in ghostly hues. For the first time, Trunks felt something other than hate when he looked at Black. Something he couldn't name. Maybe pity, maybe awe, maybe both. Zamasu sneered, stepping back, his hands glowing brighter. This compassion is corruption. Your body has betrayed you. Your mind is unraveling. Then let it unravel, Black said, spreading his arms, his aura erupting skyward in waves of golden rose light. Let it fall apart until all that remains is truth. The shockwave tore through the clouds, the city ruins glowed under its light, and for a heartbeat, even Zamasu seemed small, a relic of an older faith cracking beneath its own conviction. When the light faded, Goku Black stood still, breathing heavily. His rose aura had dimmed, replaced by something gentler, almost human. The world itself seemed to breathe easier around him. Zamasu hovered above, seething. You will regret this heresy. Perhaps, Black said, his voice low, almost a whisper. But regret is the only thing that makes gods human. Zamasu's form shimmered, his eyes burning with wrath beyond time. You are no god. You are a mistake, and mistakes must be erased. With that, he vanished into the void, leaving behind a silence thick with divine threat. Black turned slowly toward the shelter. The child still slept, her breathing shallow but steady. He knelt before her, watching the faint rhythm of her chest. In her fragility, he saw something terrifying and beautiful, a kind of courage that gods in their perfection could never know. Trunks approached cautiously, sword still drawn. Why didn't he kill you? Black didn't look up. Because he fears what I've become. And what is that? He finally met Trunks' gaze. The answer lingered on his tongue, uncertain, trembling, but real. Something between. The wind carried away the words.
In the distance, the horizon flickered, a new dawn, faint and unsteady. Goku Black rose and looked toward it, the faint glow of morning painting his face with both shadow and light. Perhaps, he murmured, the divine can fall so that something greater may rise. And for the first time, the gods smiled, not in arrogance, but in wonder. The storm had passed, but the fracture had only just begun to spread. The dawn was pale, uncertain, a quiet apology to the broken earth. Smoke rose in gentle spirals from the city's ruins, softening the edges of what had once been sharp and cruel. Goku Black stood upon a tower's fractured spine, his cloak billowing in the wind. He could feel it now, faint, steady, human, the pulse of a world still trying to live. He closed his eyes. Within the silence of his mind, the echoes began again. Not words, not memory, something deeper. Rhythm, warmth, laughter buried beneath centuries of disdain. Goten, don't wander too far. Chi-Chi's cooking again, huh? She never gives up. Kakarot, show me what you've got. The memories weren't his, and yet they beat against his heart like a drum from a forgotten war. He saw flashes, sun-drenched fields, laughter under the weight of battle, faces that once smiled at him. No, not at him, at the man whose body he had stolen. For the first time, he saw Son Goku, not as a vessel, not as an enemy, but as a being full of contradictions, fierce yet gentle, foolish yet pure, mortal yet unbreakable. And within those contradictions, Goku Black felt a reflection of something he had long denied: longing. The wind carried a whisper. You took everything from me. He turned. Trunks stood on a collapsed bridge, blue aura flickering faintly around him. The sword on his back was chipped, the edge dulled by endless battle, but his eyes, they still burned with purpose. Then why?
Trunks asked, his voice trembling. "Do you look like him now? Why do you sound like someone who feels?" Black looked away. "Because I finally do."
Trunks' grip on his sword tightened. "You expect me to believe that?" "No," Black replied, a small smile crossing his lips. "I expect you to see it." The silence between them was not empty. It was full, humming with things neither knew how to say. For so long, their bond had been forged by violence. But now, standing amid the ruins, they shared something more dangerous than hatred: understanding. Trunks lowered his sword slightly, unsure why. "You saved that child," he said. "Why?" Black's gaze wandered to the horizon, where dawn's light painted the clouds gold. "Because she cried for someone who would never return. And I remembered." "Remembered what?" "What it means to lose." Trunks flinched, the weight of that word pulling at something deep in his chest. "You speak as if you're human." "Perhaps," Black said softly. "The body remembers what the mind denies." He looked down at his hand, the same hand that had slain thousands, now trembling as if holding an invisible thread. The energy within him had changed. His ki, once sharp and divine, now pulsed with rhythm, alive, erratic, mortal. It frightened him. It also freed him. In the distance, thunder rumbled, not of storms, but of divine presence. Zamasu was out there, somewhere in the cracks of time, preparing. Black could feel the pull of his counterpart, the gravity of judgment drawing closer. The future was unraveling, one thread at a time. Trunks broke the silence. "Whatever you're becoming, it won't stop him. He's immortal." Black's eyes glimmered. "Then immortality will learn humility." Trunks frowned. "And how do you plan to teach a god that? With what I stole and what I finally understand." He stepped closer, and for a moment, the air between them shimmered, rose light merging with blue. The two auras intertwined, not in combat, but in resonance. It was fleeting, fragile, but real. In that instant, Trunks saw not the monster who had taken everything, but a reflection of Goku, tempered by sorrow, reshaped by doubt.
"I don't trust you," Trunks said. "You shouldn't," Black replied. "But walk beside me anyway." "Why would I do that?" "Because you want to save this world, and so do I." Trunks hesitated, then sheathed his sword. The motion was slow, uncertain, but it was enough. Somewhere far above, Whis paused his staff midair. Beerus's eyes opened, golden slits glowing in divine irritation. "A mortal timeline shouldn't be capable of this," he muttered. Whis tilted his head, watching the fragile alliance below. "Perhaps the universe is reminding us, Lord Beerus, that even gods are not immune to evolution." Beerus scoffed, but said nothing. On the ground, Goku Black and Trunks stood side by side, rivals, enemies, and perhaps the first allies of a broken future. Above them, the sky shimmered faintly, the first ripple of something neither divine nor mortal, a power born not of destruction, but redemption. The echoes of a mortal soul grew louder. The days that followed were quiet in a way the world had forgotten. The sky, still gray with smoke, seemed gentler now, as though unsure how to behave without constant destruction. Trunks and Goku Black moved through the wasteland like uneasy shadows, one carrying the hope of the living, the other burdened by the ghosts of the dead. Black no longer fought with the same violent rhythm. Each movement was deliberate, restrained, as if he were learning to exist without tearing. He gathered food with his ki instead of burning forests to ash. He repaired what shelters he could. The mortals who caught sight of him in the distance fled at first, but some began to watch from behind broken walls, confused by the sight of a god kneeling to rebuild what he had destroyed. Trunks kept his distance, always watching, always doubting. He told himself he was waiting for proof, for the inevitable betrayal that would confirm what he already believed. But the proof never came. One night under the fractured moon, they camped among the ruins of a temple. Its walls were scorched with divine symbols, Zamasu's words carved like wounds into the stone. Justice is eternal. Mortality is a flaw.
Black stared at the inscription for a long time, the flicker of firelight trembling across his face. "I once thought those words holy," he said at last. "Now they sound like the arrogance of a child who never learned to listen." Trunks didn't answer. He had no words for this version of the monster who had ruined his life. He only watched as Black's aura pulsed faintly, no longer the sharp glow of divine judgment, but the subdued shimmer of someone trying to hold himself together. "Do you ever wonder," Black continued, "why mortals fight even when they know they'll lose?" Trunks frowned. "Because we don't have the luxury of eternity." Black turned to him. "No, because you understand that meaning only exists when time runs out." The statement lingered in the air like incense. Black looked up at the sky, the cracked moon, the pale stars. "Zamasu and I sought to become timeless. We thought it was ascension. But now I see eternity is a cage where nothing ever changes. It is mercy that makes existence divine, not perfection." Trunks poked at the fire with his sword, sparks spiraling upward. "You talk like someone who wants forgiveness." Black shook his head. "Forgiveness is for those who still want to live. I only seek to make sense of why I still exist." The fire crackled. Beyond the ruins, the night hummed with quiet life. Crickets, the far-off groan of shifting metal, the wind threading through hollow buildings. Trunks finally spoke. "When I was a child, I thought gods were supposed to protect us. Now I think we were meant to protect each other, even from gods." Black smiled faintly. "Perhaps you're closer to the divine than any of us ever were." Before Trunks could reply, the air trembled, a soundless vibration, a pulse that reached deep into their bones. Black's expression shifted, his gaze turning toward the horizon. "He's moving," he said. "Zamasu?" "Yes." The word came like an old wound reopening. "He's purifying again, erasing the survivors." Trump stood, his hand instinctively gripping his sword. "Then what are you waiting for?" Black rose, his eyes narrowing. "I'm deciding who I am when I face him." The sky began to glow, green, cool, the color of judgment. Columns of divine light struck the earth in the far distance, each one a prayer-turned weapon. The ground shook with the echo of collapsing life. Trunks' aura ignited blue, fierce with rage and sorrow. "He's killing them! We have to go!" Black nodded. His rose aura flared to life, though softer than before, its edges no longer jagged, its rhythm steady, almost human. Together they rose into the air, cutting through the dark like twin comets, mortal and divine, bound by a single purpose. As they flew, Trunks glanced sideways. "If this is a trick, it's not," Black said. "But if it were, would you still fight?" "I'd fight anyway." Black smiled. "Then maybe that's why mortals win, even when they die." The two streaks of light vanished into the horizon, racing toward the emerald storm. Above the clouds, Whis watched their movement through his staff, curiosity in his eyes. "Fascinating," he murmured. "The mortal's hatred reshapes the god's heart, and the god's guilt steadies the mortal's will. balance born of contradiction. Beerus scoffed. Balance or not, if this breaks the laws of time again, I'll erase them both. Whis smiled faintly. Perhaps, my lord. But tell me, if a god learns to change, do you call it chaos or progress? Beerus didn't answer. Far below, as the emerald fire consumed the sky, Trunks and Goku Black dove straight into it, two souls from opposite ends of existence, flying into the heart of judgment itself. The world below waited to see which one would emerge. The emerald storm swallowed the horizon. It wasn't mere weather, it was divinity made wrath. Beams of green light carved through the ruins like celestial blades, each one erasing entire streets with the quiet certainty of a god convinced of his own perfection. Goku Black and Trunks broke through the upper clouds, the air scorching around them, the world below a trembling tapestry of fire and silence. Ahead, radiant, immaculate, and monstrous, hovered Zamasu. His body shimmered like glass filled with holy fire, every movement precise, every gesture a sermon. Trunks felt the old fury rise in his chest, but beside him, Goku Black's aura pulsed calm. Too calm. It unnerved him. "Zamasu!" Trunks shouted, his voice carrying over the storm. "It's over!" Zamasu turned slowly, eyes gleaming with divine irritation. "Over?" His voice was soft, almost kind. "You speak as though mortal words could define eternity." His gaze flicked to Black. "And you? What are you doing beside this impurity? Have you fallen completely?" Black met his eyes. "Perhaps, or perhaps I've risen above your kind of godhood." A silence fell between them, not empty but vast. Lightning cracked like shattered glass around their auras. "You disappoint me," Zamasu said. "You were the perfect reflection, my divine will in mortal flesh. And now you speak with the tongue of sin?" Black's gaze did not falter. Then maybe sin was the only teacher the divine ever needed. Zamasu's smile vanished. "Blasphemy!" The air convulsed. In a blink, Zamasu's energy flared, blinding, his ki forming spears of emerald judgment that rained down like the tears of a furious heaven. Trunks shouted, thrusting his sword upward, deflecting one, two, but the third pierced his side, hurling him into the ground below. The earth cracked under the impact. "Trunks!" Black's voice cut through the thunder as he turned, but another volley came. This one, he didn't block. He absorbed it. The storm devoured him. Energy burned through his flesh, through the very essence of his stolen body. But instead of resisting, he let it in. He let it break him. He could feel every pulse of Zamasu's hatred, divine, pure, poisonous. And in that agony he found a strange resonance. It was familiar, too familiar. Zamasu's power coursed through him like memory, the same righteousness, the same fury, the same emptiness, dressed as holiness. And suddenly Black understood. Zamasu's divine justice wasn't born from faith, it was born from fear. "Fear of what?" he whispered through the light. Zamasu heard. "Fear?" he scoffed. "You think gods fear? We are fear. We are its perfection." But even as he said it, Black saw the tremor, subtle, hidden in his tone. He smiled, pain stretching the edges of the gesture. "You're wrong. You fear them because they change, and you never could." Zamasu's expression cracked. "Enough!" He descended like judgment itself, hands outstretched, and the world screamed as divine ki ignited the sky. Black rose to meet him, rose and crossed that final distance,
rose until God and reflection collided once more. The impact was apocalyptic. Time shuddered, space screamed. The city below became a crater of frozen light, sound swallowed by force beyond mortal comprehension. For an instant, everything was still. Two figures locked in luminous struggle, their auras twisting around each other like serpents of fire and glass. Then, silence. When the light cleared, Zamasu was panting, eyes wide with something he hadn't felt in eons. Strain. Black hovered before him, blood streaking his face, his aura dim but alive. Even perfection, he said quietly, can bleed. Zamasu roared and struck again, furious, desperate. But this time, Black's movement was effortless. He flowed around the attacks like wind through reeds. His power wasn't higher, it was freer. No longer bound by divine pride, no longer chained to vengeance. He caught Zamasu's final strike and held it there. Two palms locked, green and rose, divinity against awakening. "Do you feel it?" Black said, his voice low, trembling with exhaustion and clarity. "The rhythm beneath creation, the pulse of life you've silenced for so long, it's not perfection, it's imperfection striving to be more. That's what makes it sacred." Zamasu's eyes blazed, the storm behind him collapsing inward. "You sound like a mortal!" "Then maybe the mortals were gods all along," Black whispered. He pushed. Zamasu screamed, his light fracturing, cracks spiderwebbing across his immortal form, divine essence leaking like molten glass. The storm convulsed, swallowing itself. The emerald light turned white, then gold. Black fell through it, gasping, his energy spent. When the brilliance finally died, the sky was quiet. The earth trembled with aftermath, smoke curling toward the heavens. Trunks crawled from the crater, body broken, eyes wide with disbelief. Zamasu was gone, not dead, but retreated, wounded. Black lay motionless, face tilted toward the faint stars now visible through the smoke. Trunks approached warily. You did it?" Black opened his eyes. They were no longer crimson, they were gold. "No," he said softly, "we did it because we felt." The night wind swept over them, cool and unending. High above, Whis whispered to the grand priest across realms. "The timeline trembles. The divine has remembered its humanity." And the stars, the quiet witnesses of every victory and fall, began to flicker as though in awe. The world slept uneasily beneath the bruised dawn. The smoke of divine wars still hung above the ruins, yet in that silence, that fragile pause between battles, something new stirred. Not peace, not victory, but becoming. Goku Black awoke at the edge of a crater, his body heavy, his aura faint. The faint golden hue that had flickered in his eyes now shimmered softly through his skin, a quiet light that pulsed with each heartbeat. For the first time, his energy did not burn him from within. It hummed, low and steady, like a breath he had never allowed himself to take. He sat up slowly. Around him lay the wreckage of his own power, the remains of a world both he and Zamasu had broken in the name of justice. But now, as his gaze swept across the shattered skyline, he did not see failure. He saw life clinging to edges, wildflowers breaking through ash, small sparks of ki glowing where survivors tried to rebuild, mortals as defiant as ever. Trunks sat nearby,
his arm bandaged, eyes fixed on the distant horizon. "You should be dead," he said without turning. Black gave a faint smile. "Perhaps I was." Trunks' tone was flat. "Zamasu's still out there. You didn't kill him." "I didn't want to." "What?" "I didn't want to kill him," Black said, voice quiet, "because killing him would have made me him again." The words hung between them, strange, heavy, truthful. Trunks studied him for a long time, then looked away. "He'll come back. He always does." "Yes," Black murmured, "but when he does, I'll be ready. Not as his reflection, but as his opposite." The wind stirred the ash at their feet. The light of dawn was soft, almost sacred. For a moment, Trunks didn't see the god who had destroyed his world. He saw a warrior sitting in silence, haunted and human.
"You talk like my father," Trunks said quietly. Black's eyes lifted. "Vegeta?" Trunks nodded. He was proud, arrogant, but he learned. Bit by bit, he changed. "I used to think Saiyans were incapable of that." Black tilted his head. "And now?" Trunks gave a faint, tired smile. "Now I'm not so sure." They sat there, mortal and god, student and shadow, watching the light climb over a world still trembling from their war. And somewhere far beyond that horizon, in the folds of reality itself, Zamasu healed. The immortal form that had once radiated purity now flickered with corruption. The cracks from Black's final strike had not faded. They glowed, golden and raw, like veins of lightning crawling through divine marble. In the echoing silence of the void, his voice trembled between rage and disbelief. "He wounded me." The words burned like acid on his tongue. A ripple moved across the void, divine presence descending. The air itself bent as the Grand Priest appeared, serene and untouchable. "Zamasu," he said, his tone calm but edged with warning. "Your actions have disrupted the balance across timelines. You have defied not only mortal law, but divine equilibrium." Zamasu bowed, though his smile remained. "Balance requires destruction, does it not?" The Grand Priest's eyes glowed faintly. "You mistake silence for peace." Zamasu's smirk widened. "Then let the heavens speak again." The priest's gaze lingered, not on Zamasu, but on the shimmering cracks crawling through his skin. "You are no longer whole. That impurity within you, it is mortal in nature." Zamasu's expression twisted. "Impossible." "Nothing is impossible," the priest said softly, "especially for those who claim perfection." And with that, he vanished, leaving the void colder than before. Zamasu stared into the emptiness, trembling. In his mind, he saw Goku Black, no longer servant, no longer twin, the stolen body now tainted by compassion, wielding power that defied the order of gods. A being who had embraced imperfection and found strength in it. He screamed into the void, voice breaking with fury and disbelief. "I will erase that heresy. I will erase myself if I must, but not before I destroy what he's become."
And so the immortal began to gather himself again, divine ki swirling, unending, desperate. The storm to come would not be judgment, it would be vengeance. Back on Earth, Black rose to his feet. His energy stirred, not violent, not pure, but something alive. He closed his eyes and breathed, feeling both sides of himself, the god and the man, hum in rhythm. A faint pink aura began to rise, but this time it was different. Not sharp like a blade, not hollow like vengeance. The rose hue deepened into a crimson gold, a living flame that shimmered between divinity and humanity. Trunks turned, shielding his eyes. "What is that?" Black's voice was quiet, almost reverent. Power born of both sin and salvation. The air vibrated with that new energy, warm, unsteady, beautiful. the aura of a being who had ceased trying to be divine and instead learned to be whole. And as the sun broke fully through the clouds, the light caught the crimson gold energy, turning it into something almost sacred. The rose that once symbolized wrath now bled, and in bleeding, it lived. The wind trembled around him as the new aura unfurled. It was not the divine roar of Super Saiyan Rose. It was quieter, deeper, breathing instead of burning. Crimson light washed over the ruins like sunrise through fog. And for the first time, the power within Goku Black felt weightless. Trunks shielded his eyes, his senses flooded with warmth rather than pressure. This ki wasn't oppressive, it wasn't holy, it was human. Every pulse carried contradiction, sorrow and serenity, destruction and renewal, pride and humility, flowing together in impossible balance. Black looked down at his hands, watching the faint crimson gold light flicker across his skin. "So this," he whispered, "is what it means to fight without hate." Trunks stared at him, hesitant, suspicious. "You evolved again?" Black shook his head. "No, I remembered." He turned his gaze toward the horizon, where the last of the smoke had thinned. The sun broke through, painting light over 1,000 scars of war. "Goku's body always knew how to grow through battle," he said softly, "but I never understood the truth behind it. It wasn't instinct, it was trust. Every fight, every loss, every heart he touched, they were seeds. I tried to wield his power without his heart, and so I only grew colder." Trunks folded his arms, his sword resting against his shoulder. "And now?" Black's lips curved faintly. "Now the frost has melted." The golden tint of his aura rippled like silk in wind. He looked stronger than before, but not terrifying. There was peace in his stance, like a warrior who had finally forgiven his own existence. Trunks studied him carefully. "If this is who you are now, what happens when Zamasu returns?" Black's eyes softened. "Then I will end the lie we both began." Before Trunks could respond, the air shifted, the ground quivered, the distant mountains pulsed with unnatural light. Black's expression changed, calm fading into knowing dread. He's here. Across the horizon, the sky opened, not split, peeled, like reality was a curtain being drawn back. From the wound in the heavens poured emerald fire, silent and absolute. The air burned without heat, the clouds bending inward like they feared to touch it. Zamasu descended slowly, the light framing him in ghostly halos. His once flawless form now bore scars of golden light crawling through his veins, cracks that pulsed like the heartbeat of something dying or changing. He looked almost mortal. Trunks gasped. What happened to him?" Black's eyes narrowed. The Grand Priest warned him. He ignored it. His own divinity is rejecting itself. Zamasu's laughter rippled across the ruins, brittle and wrong. "You think you've become something greater because you've felt, brother? You think weakness is a virtue? Then witness what your pity has done. Behold the perfection that refuses to die." He raised his hand. The world bent. From his fingertips spread a sea of light. Not energy, not matter, but erasure itself. Buildings turned to dust before their shadows could fall. The horizon folded, reality weeping at the seams. Trunks shouted, "We can't fight that!" Black didn't move. His aura expanded, crimson bleeding gold until it wrapped both of them like a shield. The erasure hit, and for a heartbeat, everything went white.
The golden crimson light held. It wavered, but did not break. Zamasu's eyes widened in disbelief. "Impossible! Not even the gods can withstand." "They can't," Black said softly. "But men can." Zamasu sneered, "Men are fleeting sparks!" Black took a step forward, each movement heavy with purpose. "Yes, and that's why their light means something."
The shield pulsed outward, pushing the sea of erasure back. The collision of divine wrath and mortal will turned the air to thunder. Zamasu screamed, both furious and afraid, as cracks widened across his arms, spilling golden light like bleeding holiness. Black's voice rose through the chaos, steady and calm. You wanted purity, Zamasu. You wanted eternity. But life is not eternal. It's a fire that burns brighter because it ends. Zamasu howled, lunging forward, his immortal form glowing brighter, desperate to consume. Then burn with me! Black met him in midair, their hands clashing, divine and mortal fusing into one blinding pulse. The world tilted, the oceans trembled, clouds shredded, time itself quivered at the touch of their opposing truths. Trunks watched from below, shielding his eyes as crimson light split the heavens. He could barely stand, but within that unbearable light, he saw something holy, something the gods themselves had forgotten. Two beings once born of arrogance, now rewriting what it meant to exist. Zamasu screamed, his voice cracking. You can't destroy me! I am justice! Black's eyes burned gold and red. Then let justice bleed. The explosion swallowed the sky. When the light faded, one figure remained, kneeling amid the dust, his aura dim but alive. The rose still burned around him, but now its petals dripped with light. The silence after the explosion felt unnatural, as though the universe itself held its breath. Dust swirled in golden spirals, falling like slow rain upon the broken earth. The heavens, once ripped apart by divine fury, hung still, patched together by trembling threads of light. In the center of the crater, Goku Black knelt. His aura, once wild and consuming, now glowed faintly, a rose bleeding into white, a heartbeat caught between two worlds. He was breathing heavily, his body trembling, but not from pain, from something deeper. Revelation.
Across from him, Trunks staggered forward, bruised but alive. Is it over? He asked, voice hoarse, the words almost afraid to exist. Black looked toward the sky. Not yet, for in the distance, faint but unmistakable, came the sound of something breaking. Not glass, not stone, but the fabric of eternity itself. The horizon rippled, green fissures tore across the air, and from them poured laughter, manic, trembling, divine. Zamasu. But this was not the same being they had faced. His form had changed, expanded. His body had become a storm, his essence leaking beyond shape and reason. The sky itself was his vessel now, face forming and fading within clouds of emerald light. His voice rolled through creation like thunder from a dying god. I am the universe! I am justice eternal! Trunks froze. He's merging with reality itself? Black rose slowly, wiping blood from his lips. No, he murmured. Reality is rejecting him. He's becoming what every god becomes when he refuses to learn. An echo. The air split again. Zamasu's massive visage leaned down from the clouds, his laughter splitting the wind. And what are you, traitor? A god who kneels? A sinner who dreams? Black met his gaze, his voice steady. A being who finally listens. He spread his arms wide. The crimson gold aura surged once more, brighter than before, but still gentle, still alive. The ground hummed beneath his feet as the energy expanded outward, meeting the vast green corruption spreading from Zamasu's form. Trunks drew his sword. What's the plan? He smiled faintly. The same as it always was, to protect what's worth saving. And what's that? Everything that can still feel. With that, he rose into the air, the rose and gold light blooming around him like dawn. Zamasu roared, beams of divine energy raining from every corner of the sky.
Black weaved through them with impossible grace, every movement an act of defiance, not through hate, but through purpose.
Each blow he struck was deliberate, clean, controlled, not to destroy, but to undo. The rose aura split through the emerald veins of Zamasu's energy, unweaving corruption thread by thread. "You dare unmake me?" Zamasu thundered. Black's voice echoed through the chaos. "You unmade yourself." The titanic face screamed, its form twisting, stretching across dimensions. The sky darkened to violet, space bending beneath the pressure of collapsing divinity. Trunks soared up beside him, his blue aura blazing. "Then let's finish it!" Trunks shouted, raising his sword high. Black nodded, his hand glowing. He pressed his palm against the flat of Trunks's blade, his energy flowing into it like molten light. The steel began to shimmer, half blue, half rose, humming with two hearts beating in unison. Trunks' eyes widened. "What is this?" Black's gaze softened. A bridge between gods and mortals. Together, they struck. The sword cleaved through the sky, cutting Zamasu's vast, distorted face clean through the center. Light exploded outward, white, gold, green, rose, flooding the world with brilliance. The scream that followed wasn't rage, it was release. The face shattered. The clouds burned away. The sky, for the first time in countless years, was blue. The two warriors hovered there, suspended between exhaustion and awe. The blade crumbled in Trunks' hands, the light fading gently. "Is it done?" he whispered. Black's aura dimmed to a faint shimmer. "No one truly ends," he said softly. "Not gods, not mortals. We simply change." He looked toward the rising sun, and for the first time in ages, he didn't see judgment or sin. He saw possibility. Trunks turned to him, voice low. "What will you do now?" Black exhaled slowly. "I don't know. Maybe learn to live with what I've destroyed."
The wind moved softly through the ruins, carrying away the last traces of divine fire. Far above, in the quiet halls of the divine realm, Whis watched the fading light through his staff. Curious, he murmured, "He has done what none of us dared. He found balance between godhood and humanity." Beerus yawned, his eyes half closed. Balance or blasphemy, it's always the same thing in the end. Whis smiled. Perhaps, but this time it bloomed. Down below, Goku Black lowered his head. The rose aura around him flickered once more, petals of crimson light scattering in the breeze. Each one shimmered, then vanished, like forgiveness finding its place in the wind. The rose that once symbolized wrath had finally bled itself empty. And in the emptiness, something beautiful began to grow. In the higher realms, where mortal eyes cannot see, and time folds like breath, the gods gathered. The air shimmered with divine tension, a silence thicker than the void itself. Worlds trembled beneath the weight of their attention, for something impossible had occurred. A god had changed. The grand priest stood at the center of the celestial hall, his staff glowing faintly. Around him floated specters of universes, small, spinning orbs of light, each containing its own reality, its own fragile rhythm of life and death. He gazed into one of them, Universe 7, where two lights, one rose and one blue, flickered side by side. Whis appeared beside him, serene as always. He has done it, he said softly. Goku Black has resisted divine corruption and found balance within himself. The Grand Priest's expression did not change, but the light in his eyes deepened. Balance is dangerous. The cosmos thrives on contrast, not harmony. Perhaps harmony is only dangerous to those who mistake control for peace. The words lingered. Behind them, the echo of footsteps resounded, calm, deliberate, but each one rippling through the marble floor like thunder. Lord Beerus approached, his tail swaying lazily, his golden eyes sharp. I told you this would happen. You let mortals meddle with gods, and suddenly the entire timeline smells like sentimentality. We smiled faintly. You seem almost irritated, my lord. Beerus glared. Of course I'm irritated. Zamasu should have been erased ages ago. Now his shadow taints the fabric of the multiverse. And worse, his other half refuses to stay evil. It's confusing. Whis chuckled softly. Confusion, my dear Beerus, is simply the first sign of understanding. Before Beerus could retort, another voice filled the chamber. Deep, resonant, unyielding. Enough.
The Grand Priest raised his staff, and all fell silent. Summon him. Whis tilted his head. You mean? Yes, said the priest. If Goku Black has truly changed, he must answer to Xeno's light. A shiver passed through every god in the hall. Even Beerus's expression hardened. The idea of summoning Xeno, the Omni King, was not one spoken lightly. His gaze alone could undo existence. Whis bowed. As you wish. Below, on the fractured earth, Goku Black stood in the ruins of what once was Capsule Corp. The building was little more than a skeleton of stone and metal, but inside its shadowed halls, life had begun again. Faint, stubborn. Survivors worked among the wreckage, guided by Trunks and Mai. Black kept his distance, standing in the courtyard where cherry blossoms had once bloomed. He did not belong here, and yet, for the first time, he wanted to. He reached down, brushing dust from a cracked petal engraved into the ground. So fragile, he murmured, and yet, still here. Trunks approached, bandages visible beneath his torn jacket. He said, "The people are starting to talk. Some of them think you're a guardian. Others think you're a ghost." Black smiled faintly. "Perhaps both are true." "Can I ask something?" Trunks said, hesitating. "Of course. When you fought him, when you faced Zamasu, you didn't destroy him completely. Why?" Black's gaze drifted upward. The sky was still scarred from the battle, faint veins of emerald cutting through the blue. He said, "Because he is still me, and if I destroy him without understanding him, I'll become him again." Trunks frowned, trying to grasp the paradox. "So, what now?" Black said, "I wait. Until the gods decide whether I deserve to exist." As if in answer, the sky dimmed. Clouds froze in place. Every sound, wind, breath, heartbeat, ceased. A single tear of light opened in the heavens, descending like a droplet falling through eternity. Trunks stepped back. "What is..." Goku Black closed his eyes. Judgment.
The light struck the ground, and from within it, the air shimmered, folding, bending, until Whis emerged, radiant and calm. Behind him, the Grand Priest's presence loomed like a sunrise not meant for mortal sight. Trunks dropped to one knee, trembling. Whis? Whis's smile was kind, but distant. You may rise, young warrior. This summons is not for you. His eyes turned to Black. You are called to stand before the Omni King. Black's expression did not change, but his aura flickered. Zeno? Whis nodded. Yes, he wishes to see whether your change is truth or delusion. Trunks stepped forward. He's not the same anymore. You can't. Whis held up a hand, silencing him gently. Do not plead with eternity, Trunks. It listens, but it never bargains. The wind stirred again. The tear of light widened, forming a circle that pulsed like a living star. Whis extended his hand to Goku Black. Come. Black looked at Trunks, at the boy who had once sworn to kill him. Whatever happens, he said, protect them. They are what gods forgot. Trunks clenched his fists. Don't let them erase you. Black's eyes softened. If I fade, then at least it will be as something real. He stepped into the light. The world vanished. The last thing Trunks saw before the gate closed was the faint shimmer of rose and gold, fading into the silence between universes. The light consumed everything, not with heat or pain, but with clarity. It was neither space nor time that Black crossed, but something purer, something that existed before the concept of before. When his eyes adjusted, he found himself standing on the floor of eternity itself, a surface of mirrored glass, stretching infinitely in all directions, reflecting galaxies, souls, and memories that flickered like constellations beneath his feet. The palace of the Omni King. It was silent, a silence that bent the heart rather than soothed it. The air shimmered with childlike colors, soft blues and golds that should have been beautiful, yet felt vast beyond comfort. And then, two small figures appeared. The Xenos. Their forms were simple, almost playful, yet the air around them pulsed with absolute authority. Creation itself trembled in their presence. "Goku Black," one said, his voice like the echo of a bell heard through water. "You are not supposed to exist." The other tilted his head, smiling faintly. "But you do. That's curious." Black bowed low. "Omni Kings," he said, voice steady despite the weight of their power. "I come not to defend what I was, but to understand what I have become." The two Xenos exchanged glances, childlike yet infinite. He sounds like the other Goku, but he feels different. "I am both, and neither," Black answered quietly. From the side, a figure descended, the Grand Priest, luminous and calm. His staff shimmered, capturing fragments of Black's aura, studying them as if reading the notes of a forgotten song. "His energy is divided," he said softly. "Half divine, half mortal, yet it holds balance. This has never been recorded." Zeno tilted his head. "Balance sounds nice." "It can be," the priest replied, "but it can also break the order." Black lifted his gaze. If the order cannot hold compassion, perhaps it should break. Whis, standing quietly beside the dais, hid a faint smile. The Grand Priest's expression remained unreadable. "You question the foundation of the gods." "I question what you call foundation. A tree that never bends will break in the storm. I bent and I lived." The words rippled through the chamber. Even the mirrored floor shifted, reflecting images from his memory. The faces of mortals, the cries of the innocent, the touch of a child's hand. One of the Xenos clapped his hands. "He feels warm." The other frowned slightly. "But he broke rules."
Rules are meant to protect, Black said softly. But when they begin to replace love, they protect only themselves. The words lingered,
echoing through eternity. For a long time, there was no response. The gods simply watched him, not as judges, but as beings trying to understand something alien to them. Finally, the grand priest lowered his staff. Your existence is paradox, a creation born from theft and violence, yet transformed through understanding. You defy the hierarchy that sustains us. Then erase me, Black said simply. If my existence endangers creation, end it. Whis turned sharply, but the priest raised a hand to silence him. You offer yourself willingly. I do not fear erasure, because for the first time I understand what I am. Zeno leaned forward, curious. And what is that? Black looked upward, not to the throne, but to the endless light beyond it. A reminder that even gods can fall and still rise with purpose. The two Zenos whispered to one another, voices overlapping in tones both childish and divine. The sound was soft, yet it resonated through the architecture of eternity like a pulse. At last, they spoke together. We will not erase you. Whis blinked, almost startled. The grand priest's eyes flickered, unreadable. Your Majesty, Zeno nodded. If he learned something, maybe others can too. The grand priest hesitated, but his presence will ripple through countless timelines. Let it ripple, Zeno said with a gentle shrug. Ripples make pretty patterns. The decision hung like a cosmic decree. Black bowed deeply, his heart trembling, not from fear, but from gratitude. Then I will not waste this gift. The grand priest stepped closer. Be warned, Goku Black. To walk the line between God and mortal is to be forever torn. The moment you forget either side, the balance will devour you. I understand, but perhaps being torn is what keeps me real. Zeno smiled again, childish and eternal. You can go now. Make good ripples. Light enveloped him once more, softer this time, like a farewell rather than exile.
The sky began to glow, green, cruel, the color of judgment. Columns of divine light struck the earth in the far distance, each one a prayer turned weapon. The ground shook with the echo of collapsing life. Trunks' aura ignited blue, fierce with rage and sorrow. He's killing them! We have to go! Black nodded. His rose aura flared to life, though softer than before, its edges no longer jagged, its rhythm steady, almost human. Together they rose into the air, cutting through the dark like twin comets, mortal and divine, bound by a single purpose. As they flew, Trunks glanced sideways. If this is a trick, it's not, Black said. But if it were, would you still fight? I'd fight anyway. Black smiled. Then maybe that's why mortals win, even when they die. The two streaks of light vanished into the horizon, racing toward the emerald storm. Above the clouds, Whis watched their movement through his staff, curiosity in his eyes. Fascinating, he murmured. The mortal's hatred reshapes the god's heart, and the god's guilt steadies the mortal's will. Balance born of contradiction. Beerus scoffed. Balance or not, if this breaks the laws of time again, I'll erase them both. Whis smiled faintly. Perhaps, my lord. But tell me, if a god learns to change, do you call it chaos or progress? Beerus didn't answer. Far below, as the emerald fire consumed the sky, Trunks and Goku Black dove straight into it, two souls from opposite ends of existence, flying into the heart of judgment itself. The world below waited to see which one would emerge. The emerald storm swallowed the horizon. It wasn't mere weather, it was divinity made wrath. Beams of green light carved through the ruins like celestial blades.
each one erasing entire streets with the quiet certainty of a god convinced of his own perfection. Goku Black and Trunks broke through the upper clouds, the air scorching around them, the world below a trembling tapestry of fire and silence. Ahead, radiant, immaculate, and monstrous, hovered Zamasu. His body shimmered like glass filled with holy fire, every movement precise, every gesture a sermon. Trunks' jaw tightened. "You think the people will forgive you?" "No," Black said simply. "Nor should they. Forgiveness is not earned by words. It's written through action, through time." The three of them stood there, framed by broken towers and new light. In that fragile stillness, the world did not feel lost, merely paused, waiting to be rebuilt. Far above, in the silent expanses of the divine realm, Whis and Beerus drifted in the wake of Zeno's decree. The destruction god's tail flicked idly, his expression unreadable. So the child king decides to let him live, a god who turned good, a mortal who ascended. It's also sentimental. Whis smiled faintly. "And yet, Lord Beerus, you haven't erased him." Beerus folded his arms. "Maybe I'm curious, or maybe I just want to see how long balance can last before it devours itself." "Curiosity," Whis said lightly, "is the seed of wisdom." Beerus gave him a look. "Don't make me regret this moment of restraint." The angel chuckled, his staff shimmering with pale light. "Restraint, my lord, is its own kind of destruction, the kind that allows creation to breathe." The two gazed down into the fabric of Universe 7, where a faint shimmer, rose intertwined with gold, pulsed gently across the stars. On Earth, Black moved among the ruins, his aura faint enough not to frighten. Where he walked, broken soil knit itself together, not through miracle, but through gentle pulses of ki, controlled, deliberate, humble. The people who once fled from him now watched from a distance. Fear still clung to their faces, but so did curiosity. A boy, no older than 10, stepped from the crowd and approached him cautiously. "Are you the bad one?" Black knelt, his eyes level with the child's. "I was." "Then why are you helping?" He smiled faintly. "Because the bad one finally met someone brave enough to stand against him, and I learned what bravery looks like." The boy tilted his head. "Like Trunks?" "Yes, like Trunks, and like you." The boy grinned before running back to the others, his laughter bright against the ruins.
Trunks had been watching. He approached, a faint smile breaking through his stoic expression. "You're good with kids," he said. "Goku's memories," Black murmured. "He never feared their questions." Trunks nodded. "Maybe you should keep some of them." "I intend to." The two stood side by side, silent as the sun rose higher. The world was far from healed, but something deeper had shifted. A fracture in the old divine order, an echo of mortal courage reaching even the highest realms. Whis's words to Beerus drifted softly through the fabric of space-time, unheard by them, but carried by fate itself. Sometimes, even gods need to remember how to kneel, not in submission, but in awe of what refuses to die. And beneath that endless sky, Goku Black closed his eyes, feeling the hum of every living thing. For once, his heart and his power beat in harmony. The gods watched, and for the first time, they learned. Night returned, not as the herald of darkness, but as the quiet breath before renewal. The world slept in uneasy peace. The stars above glimmered like old wounds, faint yet healing, their light delayed but faithful. Amid the ruins of humanity's survival,
Goku Black sat alone on a hillside overlooking what remained of West City. Fires no longer burned. In their place, lamps flickered, scattered like fragile constellations of defiance. The breeze carried voices from below, laughter, rebuilding, the hammering rhythm of hope. Goku Black listened, eyes half closed, his aura almost invisible now. It wasn't that he had lost his power, he had simply learned to wrest it. Behind him, Trunks approached, his boots crunching against the gravel. "You're quiet tonight," he said, though it wasn't really a question. Black's gaze stayed fixed on the horizon. Silence teaches more than words. Mortals understand this. They listen to pain until it becomes purpose. Trunks sank down beside him, arms resting on his knees. For a moment, neither spoke. The moon hung between clouds, pale and whole again after years of chaos. "Wisses told me that Zamasu's energy still lingers beyond space-time. He's not gone, is he?" Black's jaw tightened slightly. "No, he can't be destroyed. He is the idea that birthed him, perfection without empathy. As long as there are hearts that confuse control with virtue, Zamasu lives." Trunks nodded grimly. "Then it never ends."
Perhaps not, Black said softly. But neither does the will to resist it. He turned slightly, meeting Trunks' gaze. "That's why I didn't erase him. You can't kill an idea with power, only with understanding." Trunks studied him for a long time, and then, almost hesitantly, extended his hand. "Then maybe we can fight the next idea together." Black blinked, then smiled, faint, weary, but real. "Together, then." He clasped Trunks' hand, and the faint shimmer of energy that pulsed between them felt less like divine ki and more like acknowledgement, an unspoken truce between what was broken and what endured. Far beyond that peaceful hill, at the edge of the multiverse, the gods convened once more. The grand priest stood before Zeno, silent as the void surrounding them. Behind him, angels from other universes whispered, their halos dim with curiosity. "Zamasu's influence fades, but balance has shifted," one of the Zenos said. The other nodded. "Something new has begun." The grand priest inclined his head. "Indeed, a fusion of mortal growth and divine awareness." Beerus appeared in a shimmer of violet light, his arms folded. "So the Child King's pet project still breathes. Don't tell me you're all planning to make him a saint." Whis smiled faintly behind him. "Perhaps not a saint, Lord Beerus, but maybe a symbol." "A symbol?" Beerus grunted. "Symbols start wars." "Or end them," Whis countered, eyes gleaming. "It depends on who remembers them." The Grand Priest raised his staff. Within its crystal orb shimmered an image of Earth, Goku Black and Trunks standing together against the dawn. "Let them remain," he said. "Their existence reminds us that creation is not flawless, that even gods must learn." One of the Zenos giggled, swinging his legs from the throne. "I like them. They make good ripples." The words became law. On Earth, morning came. The first rays of sunlight spilled over the ruins, touching the steel skeletons of fallen buildings with a golden glow. Black felt the warmth on his face, alien yet familiar. For once, he didn't flinch from it. He arose, walking through the half-rebuilt streets. Children ran past him, unafraid. A woman offered him a bowl of rice and a cautious smile. He bowed, a gesture he once considered beneath divinity.
"Thank you," he said, and meant it. Mai watched from afar, whispering to Trunks, "He's changing faster than I thought." Trunks nodded. "No, he's remembering."
Black's steps led him to a quiet riverbank where the water caught the light like molten glass. He knelt, cupping the water in his palms, watching his reflection ripple, rose eyes fading into amber, God and man blending until neither could be named. He spoke to the reflection softly. You were born from arrogance. Perhaps even arrogance can bloom if it learns to bow. The water shimmered, and in that shimmer, for the briefest instant, another face appeared beside his own, Son Goku, smiling faintly, wordlessly. Then it faded, leaving only the ripples. Black closed his eyes. "Thank you," he whispered. And when he stood again, the dawn had fully broken. The light no longer judged him, it embraced him. The gods still watched, but not from thrones. They watched from the pulse of stars, from the breath of mortals, from the quiet space between fear and forgiveness. For in that fragile balance, something eternal had been reborn, not as a god, nor as a man, but as a truth whispered through every living soul. That even darkness, if it dares to listen, can one day learn the language of light. The stars burned quietly above him, as if remembering his will.